Well, hello there everyone. As you might have guessed by this video existing, I quite enjoy the Kirby series. In fact, I would say, pound for pound, it's probably my second, maybe third favorite game series, as there aren't really any bad Kirby games. But as you saw in the title, this isn't a review, it's a boss ranking, so I'll say that's enough rambling for now. Since Kirby games are rarely ever hard outside of in-game boss rush modes, we'll be ranking these guys from worst to best, and I'm going to be taking a page from Magic Hat, giving the bosses tiers to more properly convey my opinions on them. With that said, let's talk about the whale. Number 10, Acro the Whale. At the bottom of the list, and a surprise to no one that's played this game, we have Acro. What's wrong with this fight? Well, the entire battle takes place underwater. Acro easily takes the spot for worst boss, and a lot of that is thanks to this boss fight, again, taking place underwater, so everything is awkward and floaty to control. To be fair, it's not that bad when you're playing the levels, and overall, Kirby games tend to be better at their water levels than most, but it's a bit of a problem when you have a boss that moves very quickly under the water while you're stuck moving at a snail's pace. Phase 1 is alright, and honestly, it does give some pretty good chances to retaliate if you're good with your movement, though I won't pretend like it's anything I really love. Phase 2, however, is where all goodwill goes to die as he pulls out a second health bar and now he's chasing you as you try to ascend the chasm. This is where the fight honestly gets pretty terrible because the sluggish controls mean you'll be threading the needle between enemies that like to use AoE attacks and Acro shooting missiles at you. Plus, he likes to hang out near the bottom of the screen, which has an instant death plane right below him. This means the only real safe time to hit him is when he swims up to go for a pretty pathetic charge attack. This fight just isn't fun, and while in a vacuum it's passable, I've done the boss rush mode, and having to face all 7 major bosses on a single health bar makes me wish for the heat death of the universe, and a lot of that is because of this guy. Without a doubt, this is my least favorite boss in the game, and objectively the worst boss in this game as well. Number 9, Pix. We go from a boss that's widely disliked to a boss that some people love, and then there's me. So this boss is just kind of, well, it's just kind of a waiting game, because he only really has one phase, and it ends up being a simple case of match the colors. I guess you could say that the ascent up the tower is phase 1 and the fight is phase 2, but you're in so little danger during the ascent up the tower that it's kind of a nothing phase. There's no real skill or speed tech involved, and it's an auto-scroller. When we finally get to the top of the tower, they just sort of spin at you. I definitely like the visuals for this fight, as the platform ascending into the sky is really cool, and the arena looks awesome. But the battle itself feels more like a placeholder boss. It's not bad, but when I think of my favorite Kirby bosses, Pix does not make it anywhere near the list. Number 8, Waddle Doo. I think this boss being in decent tier is proof that Charm is able to carry a boss pretty far, at least for me. Heck, I unironically wanted Mimic Tier to show up in the Elden Ring DLC because I actually like that boss, and I think having it fighting against him with DLC weapons would have been awesome. Anyways, rambling, so capping off the tutorial level of the game, we have our first boss fight against Waddle Doo. And yeah, it's by far the easiest boss in the game, having only a single phase, and all he really does is just kind of run at you, charge, and jump. He doesn't have his iconic beam attacks or anything because, well, he's not a proper Waddle Doo, he's actually a corrupted Waddle Dee, which mildly terrifying to think that his entire face turned into an eye. But yeah, the biggest threat in this fight is actually the stars that give you ammo, and that's just because I forgot that they damage you in this game if you touch them. Yeah, it's one of those weird things with Kirby games. The old Kirby games are kind of inconsistent with what is and isn't dangerous. Regardless though, I do love this fight. The music is peppy, the animations are phenomenal and expressive as hell. And I think capping off your tutorial level with a simplified boss fight is actually a pretty good way to go. In fact, Return to Dreamland did the same thing with the fight against the Sphere Doomer. Okay, so actually one last thing. Does anybody else think that this Waddle Dee ended up becoming Bandana Dee in the later games? I don't know, that's just my own little personal theory. Since he joins your team and kind of becomes Kirby's best friend in the future games. Number 7, Magman. Anyways, I'm just gonna start out by saying it's Phase 2 that's pulling all the weight here. Phase 1 is annoying enough to end up down in the pit of mediocrity, or being downright bad, with Acro. Phase 1 is just super boring. All you do in the fight is wait for him to shoot out those fireballs, then he'll alternate to a slow lava pillar attack that you either dodge or stand in place. You can hit him once. Do this 6 times. Theoretically, you could get him multiple times if you got multiple suctions, but that's not happening. It's not really that hard as long as you're patient, but it's very easy to get impatient in this fight, and it's the same issue that bosses like Pyrabit would have in Kirby's Triple Deluxe. It's not fun, it's very tedious. Thankfully, once Phase 1 is over, Phase 2 is actually a lot better. He's going to start alternating between the two sides of the arena, and he'll start erupting, or dropping rocks on you from the sky, or breathing in to unleash his fire breath. Now, I will say I wish his fire breath did a better job communicating where the hitbox starts and ends, but I can't be too harsh on it because the effect does look cool, and it was kind of a limitation of early, well, not early, but just of N64 games in general, where they couldn't really animate fire, so they just did orange spheres. Fair enough. And once you learn, just stay next to Magman, that attack actually isn't an issue. The boss also gets points because if you're efficient, you can actually suck up multiple objects and create stronger projectiles to deal double damage against him in Phase 2. Unfortunate thing is that Phase 1 is so boring that it just keeps him out of reaching good tier. Number 6, Wispy Woods. The tree is back, and get used to it, he has a near perfect attendance record in this series. You might be surprised to see his fight fare a lot better than you'd initially think, given he's the first boss and, well, he's a tree. But here's the thing, this boss does a lot of cool things, and every time Wispy's come back, he's done something different. This is the first boss in the game to use a circular arena, giving the place a 3D environment to move around in, and in Phase 1, Wispy will stay in the center of the arena firing off apples, while you, and I wish I had a better way to put this, kill his children. Now, for some reason, I wonder why, this makes him pretty mad, and even though we wouldn't be able to hurt him if he didn't fire off the apples to use his ammunition, unless you had a copy ability, in which case you just kind of massacre him, we're in Phase 2 now, and Phase 2 has him unleashing a ton of apples as lingering projectiles before shooting out 4 root spikes that you are able to damage. I do actually like how, even though he's exposing a weakness, he's doing it as an attack, so it feels less like incompetence and more like he's just mad. Almost like he killed his kids in front of him or something. And just like Magman, if you're able to suck in multiple apples, you can deal double damage against the boss, which, hey, I like when games let you do that. And after Wispy goes down, you'll have officially cleared the first planet of the game, and the true journey begins. Number 5, King DDD. Here we have it, the big final battle to cap off your epic journey. Wait, wrong game. DDD gets possessed by dark evil forces, I'm guessing it's a day that ends in Y, and it's time for a 2-phase boss fight against the not-so-evil king. Phase 1 is actually pretty reminiscent of his Kirby 1 battle, with him running, jumping, hammering, and inhaling you, but all with some unnatural and possessed-looking movements, for obvious reasons. The most notable thing I should say is that, unlike a lot of bosses, it only takes 3 hits to take out his health bar, so, that seems awkwardly easy. Well, that's because this boss busts out a second health bar once he's done. Phase 2 has dark matter take over as he turns into, well, his fight from Dreamland 3, shooting at projectiles or having his stomach open up as a giant mouth, which has to be painful. It's very simple, but it's a good one for a fight this early in the game. Then there's the music, which, believe it or not, I actually kind of like it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not his iconic theme from every other Kirby game, but I like the fast and frantic nature, and I really wouldn't mind it coming back in a future game, even if it's only for a single phase of a fight. Kirby's no stranger to that, so hey, maybe at some point. Last thing I should say, which this is less a thing about the boss and more about the story as a whole, I believe this is the first time Deities truly joins us as a good guy. Yes, he has those face turns where he helps you, where he reveals he wasn't the bad guy and helps you take down the real big bad at the end of the games, but this is the first time that he's with you from the start of the journey. Or close to the start of the journey anyways. Number 4. HR-H. Giant robots are objectively cool. Now that we're all on the same page, let's discuss this boss a bit. Now, the only way to really hurt HR-H is when his arms are over the platform, similar to Magman. However, you actually have plenty of opportunities to attack him, and instead of just giving you ammo, you have to counter his attacks, such as countering his bombs, his wreckage, whatever. Phase 1 is very simple, but it's good fun, and if you're quick, you can actually pick up multiple pieces of wreckage and from his slam attack and use that to deal double damage. Phase 2 has him do a Power Rangers form change, or maybe a Transformers form change, not important. This is where things will change up, as now you're being chased down by his alternate form, the HR-E, and he gives you so much ammo to throw back at him that this actually ends up being more of a quick burn phase, but it does look cool, and it is still pretty fun. And while you can instantly die from falling off the bridge, that's not going to happen. I've heard rumors that you're actually on a time limit, and if you took too long you'd run out of arena, but I haven't ever seen anything to confirm that, and realistically, this fight's never going to last long enough for him to actually be able to do something like that. Still, it is a very cool boss fight, and it's one that actually went on to inspire quite a few of the future bosses in the series. Number 3, Miracle Matter. Now we have the final boss of the game, and by far the hardest fight in this game. Miracle Matter does something that hasn't really been seen in any other Kirby boss in the series, as it requires you to use all the abilities to bring him down. Most other bosses take 6 to 12 hits to bring down, but Miracle Matter takes over 20. Instead of having multiple phases, he has 8 different forms he'll swap between. 7 forms can take 3 hits and utilize one of the copy abilities in the game, and he also has a neutral form that it will go back to between each phases that there's no way for it to attack you, but it's also immune to any and all damage. The only way to actually damage Miracle Matter is to attack him with the same element that he's sent out. As I mentioned, this is by far the hardest fight in the entire game, but it's a satisfying challenge to bring down. So why is it not an amazing tier? Well, 2 things. Lingering hitboxes can hurt this fight badly, because a lot of his stuff likes to linger around, and this is actually the one battle where the copy ability fusion mechanic works against you, because if you try to shoot Miracle Matter and he moves behind another projectile, or one of the projectiles he left for you is in the way, instead of actually going through and damaging him, it's going to fuse together with the other one and harmlessly ascend into the air before falling to ground level, and by that time you've more than likely wasted your entire chance to actually damage him. That being said, it's still it's not an amazing fight, but it's still a great fight and poses a solid in-game challenge, and the music in this battle is super intense, definitely fitting of the final battle, even if it's not the true final boss of the game. Number 2, Adeline. How the heck did Adeline get up to into the amazing tier? Oh, right, Charm. And also being one of the most varied fights in the entire game. See, not only is her music great, but this boss has the most phases out of any boss in the game, and variation rivaled only by Miracle Matter. Phase 1 is going to have her creating different classic Kirby enemies that, well, they go down easy, but they have their own behavioral patterns, and she creates a bunch of different ones, such as the Bronto Burt, the not Waddle Dees, the Spider Dude that I actually don't remember too well at all, and including also an enemy that's so unsightly that the game decides to censor it. And I also really just like the art style this fight has going on for it. But of course, mobs only make up the first phase of the battle. Phase 2 has her create Ice Dragon from the previous Kirby Dream Land game, and while this fight is extremely easy, all you do is just shoot his projectile back at him, well, it's a fairly iconic boss, though maybe not to the extent of Wispy and Kracko. It's fun, cute, creative, and charming. But then there's the next phase. The last, well, not last, but the third phase of the battle is against Dark Matter, or a painting of Dark Matter. And it's basically an easier version of his fights from the previous games, dropping some bullets and charging at you. None of these phases have a ton of HP, pretty much going down in 3 hits, but the variation is nice, and surprisingly, it's very involved for only the second boss in the entire game. Then there's her final phase, but I say this with massive air quotes, where she'll charge at you in a rage. Except this phase is a joke and she goes down in 1 hit from anything, including a slide kick or even just walking into her. You'll take damage, but she'll go down. It's an extremely easy fight, given that it's in the first 20 minutes of the game, but hey, it's fun, it's creative, the charm is extremely high, and it's just a good time. But of course, there's only one boss that could truly take the top spot. Well, okay, technically some people may like Miracle Matter more, and that's perfectly fine, but hey, let's get to talking about the boss that kind of solidified crazy true final bosses in Kirby games. Number 1, the true final boss of Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, 02. Is this boss too simple to be the best fight in the game? Nah. The true final boss of this game is more of a story encounter than a brutal challenge, but it lasts long enough that it feels less like a joke battle and more like a victory lap. I don't need to tell you that Kirby games like to shake things up for their final battles, not only including going from fighting a tree to fighting an Eldritch Nightmare, but they've been doing these changes since Kirby's Adventure on the NES, with you falling from the sky trying to take out the Nightmare Orb. Maybe I should do a Kirby's Adventure video at some point? Ideas for the future. Anyways, I don't talk about atmosphere very much in games, because normally I don't care that much, but this fight nails it. The design of the boss is ominous, the music is hauntingly beautiful, and the arena is pretty abstract for what it is. The spread shot on his eyes will be the main source of damage. Well, it'll be his primary source of offense in general, and I'm legally required to mention that the eye bleeds, as if his previous eye didn't rip out of his head in the last game. Kirby games are kind of screwed up when you really think about it. And once the eye is stunned, you can shoot his halo where his original eye was located, and when that's taken enough damage, he'll be truly stunned, and you can attack his cactus heart what thing to clock in some real damage while dodging the toxins he fans out in a desperate defensive measure against you. But you have a serious choice to make here. Do you go straight for the heart to potentially kill the boss faster, but deal with more relentless attacks throughout the game, or fight? Or do you take advantage of his stunned state to cripple his wings so you'll have a safer battle for the rest of the fight? But if you do take out his wings, the fight lasts longer, which increases your chances of getting hit. I love the risk-reward nature this battle has, and while it's simple, there's no secret that simplicity, when done well, is good. that simplicity is what helps this boss stand the test of time, and the reason you still see this guy end up on best final boss lists over 2 decades after the game released. And of course, there's also the music. We can't forget about the amazing music. I am more than happy to give the true final battle against Zero 2 and the conclusion of the Dark Matter trilogy the reward for the best boss in Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards. Anyways, yeah, that's the video. I hope you all enjoyed. Consider liking, commenting, and subscribing if you want to see more. There's gonna be more boss rankings in the future, as well as more long-form videos like my Kirby 1 video or my Dark Souls video. And yeah, I'm just going to try to cover more games as a whole. And yeah, Kirby 64 will be one of those games to get a long-form video. This is just something I wanted to get made as a way to both get back into doing some boss rankings and also a way to get some practice for this game, because while I don't think Kirby 64 is hard, it's home to by far the most deaths from me being stupid. Anyways, that's enough rambling. The video's over, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys